Wearing my brand new suit, I was sweating heavily. Each word from the interviewer was utterly simple, yet being under such scrutiny made my mouth move as if it belonged to someone else.
Why didn't you think about going to college?
I wanted to spend that time on programming.
So you just wanted to do what you like, right?
The intellectual interviewer snorted and said that. I had no response. Just a sense of regret and humiliation came over me. I'm sorry. As I apologized quietly, the interviewer said with a look of disdain,
Incompetent people are not accepted. You may leave now, please.
I couldn't even submit the detailed documents of the software I had developed and brought with me, too scared of what had transpired. Incompetence remains incompetence after all. I hung my head, greeted the interviewer, and left the room. My job hunt was proving to be a tough journey. That's what I thought until that moment. My name is Michael Johnson, and I'm 21 years old. In middle school, I got hooked on programming after playing around with a computer belonging to my uncle.
If that's what Michael decides, then it's fine by us.
My parents adored me and didn't scold me when I told them I wouldn't be going to college after high school. I'm a baby in my parents' eyes. It doesn't matter how old I get. While it seemed like my friends were all going through rebellious phases and clashing with their parents, I could never bring myself to strongly oppose my kind parents. Perhaps as a reaction, whenever I felt discontent, I'd throw myself into programming with a passion. When I was in front of my computer, I'd become utterly absorbed. All my worries would vanish, and I'd be filled with hope and exhilaration. The fewer days I went to school, the more I dove into programming every day. That's how I started creating simple games and social networking sites. Whenever an idea came to me, I'd try to create it on the spot. I continued living like that for a while. Every time I received feedback from users on my projects, I felt validated in my efforts. I'm not sure what kind of job I'll end up in, but if I could continue doing this, it would be my dream come true. This is my calling. That day too, I woke up past noon, having skipped school. I turned on my computer even before putting on my glasses. As soon as it finished booting up, I sat up, still tousled from sleep, and peered at the screen. Then, I saw an email had arrived. The moment I saw the sender, my body tensed, and I broke out in a sweat. This can't be real, a prank or a mistake. My sleepiness vanished instantly, and I decided to go downstairs to the living room to calm down.
Good morning, Michael. Do you want for breakfast? I was thinking of preparing lunch in about 30 minutes.
My mom, nibbling on some crackers while reading the newspaper, and my dad, clipping his nails on the porch. Looking out the window, I saw a plane floating in the cloudless sky.
Hey, Michael, it's a nice day again today.
My dad, with his hair streaked with gray, turned around and smiled. I used to be told I looked like my mom, but lately, it seems I've started to resemble my dad. Mom, I'll pass on breakfast. Can I get a coffee? Mom smiled warmly and headed to the kitchen, humming a tune. Even as I waited for my coffee, I couldn't stop thinking about that email. I'm just going to the bathroom. Leave the coffee for me. I decided I had to check it again. Without waiting for my mom's response, I dashed up the stairs to my room. I hurried to my computer and read the email again carefully. It was indeed from a well-known Japanese IT company that I recognized. The email was written in more polite English than I'd use. Can't be real. They wanted to buy my site, which I released 2 years ago, dedicated to a nerd community. It's a social site dedicated to the nerd community. I had noticed an increase in foreign users recently, but was it becoming popular overseas too? The email mentioned they wanted to discuss directly. My mind was completely overwhelmed. Feeling dizzy, I decided to go back to the living room.
What's wrong, Michael? You look pale. Do you have a stomach ache?
It's not that. Something big has happened.
Something bad?
My mom, who had been reading the newspaper, looked at me worriedly. Actually, one Japanese company wants to buy my site.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
But it might be a scam.
You won't know unless you try.
That's right. Why don't you take a chance and contact them?
Despite my worries, my parents were surprisingly enthusiastic. That's the thing with people who hardly ever use computers. They don't understand. But encouraged by my parents' words, I decided to reply to the email. Later, when I was offered an unimaginable amount for the site and decided to sell, I was incredibly nervous. With that money, I bought the latest computer and all the essentials for programming. I also took my parents to a fancy restaurant and contributed to my dad's car purchase. It was the least I could do to show my appreciation to my parents, who tolerated my reclusive lifestyle. I was indebted to the Japanese company. However, life changed drastically in the fall. My dad passed away suddenly from a subarachnoid hemorrhage. Using my healthy dad so suddenly, my mom became deeply depressed. Of course, so did I.
Was that tough for you? So, does that mean you, Abbas, need to start exploring the outside world soon?
As a naive person, I talked to a friend I met on the internet who I didn't even know. Black Cat is the handle of the friend I connected with through a hobbyist online game. By the way, Abbas is my handle name. We mainly talk using chat, and from what I can tell, Black Cat is a man. Though I've never asked his age. He's probably older than me. Yo, it would be great if there's a company out there willing to hire me. Black Cat kindly encouraged me as I felt down.
You're trying things you've never done before. It's natural to struggle. Job hunting seems like a distant memory for me, but I'm always here to listen if you need me.
Online gaming reminded me that there are real people on the other side of the screen. His words warmed my heart, filled with nothing but anxiety about my suddenly changing circumstances. So, I received advice from Black Cat on how to write a resume, points to highlight about myself, and tips for the interview.
Well, it'd be great if Abbas had some standout achievements to brag about.
When prompted about achievements, I remembered the site I had sold to a Japanese company.
Why don't you bring some material that introduces the site?
Black Cat suggested this, advising me to keep the details vague to avoid revealing my identity. I see. If the company sees it, they might evaluate my skills. Following Black Cat's advice, I prepared the presentation materials. With my job search prep complete, I started attending interviews at several companies. Big corporations wouldn't even consider me without a college degree. So, I sent my resume to as many small companies as I could, but few were willing to interview a high school graduate with no formal experience. I hadn't attended a vocational school, and my programming skills were entirely self-taught. Plus, I was a recluse. If I were an employer, I wouldn't take a chance on someone with such high risks. Though I understood this, each rejection email made me feel more isolated from the world, as if a hole had opened up in my heart. I could live off the money from the site sale for a while, but I wanted to reassure my dispirited mom as soon as possible. My anxiety was growing. It was Black Cat who cheered me up during those anxious moments.
Our company is looking for programmers too. If things don't work out, come work with us.
I took it as a joke, but those words lifted my spirits. I didn't know where he lived or what his company was like. I'll count on you then. Such casual exchanges helped me calm down a bit. Even after getting rejected by many companies, I never gave up, and I was at another interview today. The company I was interviewing with today offered website and e-commerce site management services to local businesses. I applied because their job listing stated, "No experience necessary, programmers wanted."
Huh. So you spent the time you could have been in college on programming.
The interviewer today was the same as always, looking down on me with a disdainful attitude. His name tag read James.
So you've just been doing what you like, huh? What if you encounter something you dislike at our company? Are you just going to quit?
I scrambled to think of a response to James' words. As you've pointed out, I lack work experience. However, I have a strong foundation in programming and a strong desire to utilize it. I've come to your company's interview with the determination not to quit easily. I looked James straight in the eye and answered. Did I manage to convey that well? I was mentally celebrating, but James, looking at my resume, said,
But, you know, Michael, your track record is pretty bad. I can't find any compelling reasons to hire you.
But could you please take a look at this? I have experience creating my own website. Saying that, I tried to take out the presentation materials I'd prepared with Black Cat's advice from my bag. However, James chuckled at my actions.
What are you talking about? A no experience, no hire like you is a definite rejection. Please go home.
Thrown by his words, I didn't know how to respond and ended up apologizing meekly. I am sorry. James sneered at me and loudly said,
If you're going to apologize, then don't bother coming to an interview. What a complete waste of time.
Being yelled at out of the blue made me shrink even more. Finally, James offered a thin smile and recited a standard farewell.
Thank you for your time today. We will inform you of our decision in 2 to 3 days. Thank you.
After the interview, I couldn't bring myself to go straight home. I found myself aimlessly sitting in a park near the company until it gradually got dark. Again, it didn't go well again. Feeling my life was enveloped in darkness, I wondered if having gone to college would have given me more options for living, sparing me from such struggles. Of course, I knew it was futile to blame myself now. Feeling miserable about my pathetic self, I couldn't bear the thought of going home and facing my mom. I decided to at least send a message to Black Cat about the interview. He's probably going to be fed up with me by now. As tears threatened to spill, a pleasant aroma wafted into my nose. It was coming from a nearby pub. I wondered if it was normal for working people to stop by places like this after work. I wouldn't normally consider entering such a place, but I didn't want to be alone today. I wondered if it might lift my spirits and open the pub's door.
Hello, how many people?
The cheerful greeting made me timidly indicate I was alone. I was guided to a seat at the counter, where it was relatively empty since it was still early. After receiving the menu from the staff, I ordered a few dishes. The simple, comforting flavors seemed to soothe my weary soul. As I was enjoying my meal alone, a pair of men were led to the seats next to me.
2 guests, right this way to the counter seats.
I glanced at the man who sat next to me. There was James, the interviewer I had met earlier in the day.
Hey, are you?
It seemed he remembered me as he initiated the conversation.
Do you know each other?
The man accompanying James asked, looking at me. The man, with a shaved side hairstyle and glasses, appeared older than James.
Yes, he came to our company for an interview today.
So you're into programming too, huh?
Yes, I am. I responded, but recalling the day's events made me unintentionally curt. Undeterred, the glasses-wearing man continued to engage me.
Did you study at a vocational school?
Come on, Tom. That almost sounds like another interview. His interview is already over.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
The man, referred to as Tom, apologized lightly. Well, I didn't pass anyway. I laughed self-deprecatingly.
Is that so, James?
When Tom asked, James smiled and said,
Well, yeah, I mean, he's a high school graduate with no work experience. Plus, he's self-taught in programming, and even mentioned making his own website.
Remembering the interview, I felt a tightness in my chest. However, upon hearing this, Tom unexpectedly said,
A website you created yourself? Can you tell me more about it?
Surprised by Tom's forwardness, I decided to show him the presentation materials I hadn't had the chance to present during the interview. Tom took it and looked over it with enthusiasm.
Is this the site you sold to a Japanese company?
James looked confused next to an excited Tom. The site I had sold was now a top-ranked, well-known site in Japan. It has grown from a nerd community site to a reputable social networking platform recognized in Japan. I couldn't hide my surprise at its success.
Anyone who has ever aspired to be a programmer would have heard of this story at least once, but I never imagined a person behind it would come to our company for an interview. What's your name?
Michael Johnson.
That's it, no doubt about it.
While Tom spoke excitedly, James looked visibly uncomfortable. Then Tom said to James,
You've rejected such a talented person. Just by looking at these materials, anyone could see what kind of person he is. What exactly are your criteria for interviews?
Oh no.
James went pale as Tom's intensity grew.
James, Maybe you've been letting talented people slip through all this time. If that's the case, you're definitely getting fired.
Listening to their conversation, the company had consistently rejected applicants for programming positions despite advertising that no experience was necessary. Tom had been investigating why, suspecting James's intimidating interview tactics might be the cause. Indeed, making troubling statements and shouting insults could be considered a form of stress interview.
Your actions could tarnish the company's image. I'll be reporting this in tomorrow's executive meeting, so be prepared.
After Tom's intervention, James left the pub as if fleeing. Thanks to Tom, I was successfully hired. After completing a 3-month probation period, I would officially become a full-time employee. My self-taught programming skills were not in vain. However, as a newcomer both to the workforce and as a programmer, I am inexperienced. I'm grateful to my senior colleagues who are willing to teach me, and I aim to grow steadily in my role. As for James, he wasn't fired but was transferred to a different department. His domineering behavior had alienated his coworkers, so when Tom confronted him about the stress interviews, no one came to his defense. And then, something even more surprising happened.
Good evening, Abbas. Congratulations on a job.
Black Cat. Oh no, you're my boss. I never imagined we'd end up working together.
Come on, just talk to me like you always do.
I never guessed that Black Cat was actually Tom. It became clear as we talked at the pub, and this revelation was the most surprising of all. The decisive clue was the presentation materials I had made with Black Cat's advice. Tom was quite surprised when he saw them, as they were the ones we had discussed. I am glad that your offer to work with me if I could not find a job came true for me. When I replied that, in chat, Black Cat, rather, Tom responded,
Didn't I tell you, you would be fine?
I wonder how much this simple exchange has saved me. I typed my heartfelt thanks into the chat. Today, as I take my first steps as a working adult, I visited my dad's grave with my mom. In front of the grave, I reported to my dad that I had secured a job. I've been relying on you and Mom for so long. I'm sorry, but from now on, I'm going to do my best. As I murmured this, my mom, with tears in her eyes, hugged my shoulder.
Michael, whatever you decide, I'm sure your dad is supporting you from wherever he is. And so is your mom.
With the kindness of my parents in my heart, I resolved to repay them, even just a little, for all they've done for me.